Monteverdi Hai 450 SS, the 1970 Swiss supercar with a mid-mounted 426 Hemi. When we speak about Swiss-made products, the first items that come to mind are watches or army knives. However, more than half a century ago, an ambitious businessman wanted to add supercars to that list by creating a Ferrari slayer with an American heart. His name was Peter Monteverdi, and before embarking on this outrageous endeavor, he made a career as a car salesman. At one point, he even acquired the Swiss franchise for Ferrari and later became the official importer for other prestigious brands such as Rolls-Royce and Bentley. But the man wasn't content with just selling cars. His biggest dream was to build them. Called Monteverdi Special, the first one came in the early 1950s and was actually based on a wrecked 1949 Fiat platform. He didn't stop there, and by the end of the decade, Monteverdi was developing his own Formula One car. This culminated with a debut at the 1961 Solitude Grand Prix, a non-championship race based on Formula One rules, where he retired after just 2 laps. He would never return to the track, but the open-wheeler wouldn't be the last car to carry his name. In 1963, after a heated argument with Enzo Ferrari over an order of 100 cars, he lost the right to sell the famous Italian sports cars in Switzerland. This lit a different kind of fire under Monteverdi, who began laying the foundation for his own car manufacturing enterprise. Thus, in 1967, the company that bore his name started operations with the aim of building some of the world's most exclusive high-performance sports cars. The first mass-produced model released later that year was the exquisite Chrysler V8-powered high-speed. It was met with positive reviews and sold well, but didn't quite live up to its name. Monteverdi wanted a faster, more exclusive car that could compete directly with flagship models from Ferrari, Lamborghini, or Maserati, so he began developing the mid-engine Hai 450 SS prototype. The car gets its name from the German word for shark, Hai, coupled with the targeted engine output of 450 PS and the short super sports wheelbase. With a simple yet sturdy steel tube chassis underneath, its shark-shaped body was designed and built in Italy by Carrozzeria Fissor. Rumor has it that it was influenced by an unfinished successor for the Alpine A310, a project handed down to the craftsmen at Fissor but scrapped by Renault a few months before. At the front, it had an independent suspension system with double wishbones, while the rear employed a de Dion system with lateral Watts links and lower trailing arms. Furthermore, the adjustable shocks were made by the Dutch experts at Connolly. Monteverdi wanted his car to be fast and exquisite, but also mechanically uncomplicated, so the engine he deemed perfect for his masterpiece was the 426 Hemi, which was famous for being powerful and easy to maintain. Identical to the units that were found under the hoods of Chrysler's muscle cars at the time, but mounted behind the cockpit and mated to a 5-speed ZF transaxle, the 7.0-liter was capable of delivering 350 horsepower, net, or 425 horsepower, gross. This meant up to 431 PS, which was not quite the targeted figure, but the car's original name stuck. Painted in a bespoke color called purple smoke, the fully functional prototype was revealed to the general public at the 1970 Geneva Auto Show along with plans for a limited production series of 49 units, each with a massive $27,000 price tag, $190,172 today. Those in attendance were intrigued by the spectacular design, as well as the humongous engine squeezed inside, so it got a warm reception. The manufacturer stated that it could sprint from 0 to 100 km per hour in 4.8 seconds and reach a top speed of about 289 km per hour, figures that would have made it faster than a Lamborghini Miura. Despite this, most people never heard about Monteverdi and were skeptical about the promising supercar. The level of skepticism intensified after it was put to the test by former race driver and European editor for Road and Track magazine, Paul Frere, who clocked a 0 to 100 km per hour time of 6.9 seconds, reaching 270.6 km per hour in the process. Experts argued that the main reason for this was the overall weight. Because it used the huge Hemi as well as many other stock Chrysler chassis components, the curb weight of the 450 SS stood at 1,756 kilograms, 3,871 pounds, much more than what the carmaker envisioned. Nevertheless, this was the first prototype, and with further development, it could have become lighter. But, even in those times, if an up-and-coming manufacturer claimed to have built the ultimate supercar, it needed to back that statement up or face ridicule. In the aftermath of that test, which included a fair share of negative press coverage, Monteverdi failed to register a single order for his promising vehicle, ending any future plans for mass production. By that time, another unit was built, but it didn't prove to be much lighter or faster. The company sold the initial prototype a year later to a private collector, and since then, it has switched hands many times. According to the online information, this elusive supercar was last sold for $577,500 at a 2012 Pebble Beach auction. In the 1990s, another two replicas were built from spare parts, and they both can be admired at the Monteverdi Museum in Basel, Switzerland. Even if the Hai 450 SS never reached its true potential, it still remains one of the most fascinating cars built in the 1970s. The Hai is an enigma. Having appeared just 2.5 years after the first Monteverdi automobile was initially presented to the general public, it represented Peter Monteverdi's idea of what an out-and-out, uncompromising, two-seat GT car should be like: brutal, yet svelte, extremely rapid and possessing breathtaking acceleration, yet not forsaking such amenities as air conditioning, electric windows, heated rear window, and a fully carpeted luggage boot and interior, the latter trimmed in Connolly leather. It was not, and this should be made very clear, ever intended to be a car which was simple to drive and which anyone who had driven fast cars could relax in and feel immediately at home with its speed. The 375 series of 2- and 4-seat GT cars most adequately fulfilled that premise. The Hai was the simple, straightforward statement of a hard-headed, often cantankerous perfectionist as to what was required to be one of the fastest drivers behind the wheel of an automobile built to run on public roads, while not sacrificing any of the conveniences that had, by the late 1960s and early 1970s, come to be expected in high-priced GT cars. The luxury didn't come cheap, with a price of 82,400 Swiss francs. If the Hai was an enigma, the existence of Automobile Monteverdi AG was an even greater one. In the post-World War II period, it had often been attempted to build an exclusive GT in the highest performance category, but only rarely had such endeavors been crowned with success. On the surface, it appeared that success came instantly to Peter Monteverdi, who, then aged 37, had managed to produce what many believed to be the most complete line of high-performance luxury cars. Beside the Hai in the production program were the 375S 2-seater, 375L 2+2, 375C Cabriolet, and 375/4 high-performance saloon. All this just 4 years after the world first heard the name Monteverdi. The enigma might have been a bit simpler to comprehend if you had an insight into the very complex character which sum total of all its facets made up the personality of Peter Monteverdi, artist, engineer, and hard-driving businessman. 3 of the most unlikely qualities to combine within one person, and each at ends with the other. The one driving force which kept them tethered together was the desire to build automobiles. Monteverdi reduced it all to the lowest common denominator by his simple statement: "I always wanted to build cars." Nothing more, nothing less. He built his first one at the age of 17, in 1951, a cycle-winged sports roadster based on the engine and front and rear suspension of a wrecked 1939 Fiat 1100. A harbinger of things to come, it was christened Monteverdi Special. Inheriting the family garage business when only 22, Monteverdi turned it into a first-rate tuning establishment for high-performance machinery while making a name for himself as a competition driver.